really supported us. And I do want to point out Carla Rabinowitz down here in the corner, who really is one of the founders of this work, a phenomenal board member, but also has been pushing for this change in crisis response for the longest time, and has really inspired us to continue that fight. And Ruth as well, and I assume Christina's somewhere in the background too, as well as Evelyn and a number of other advocates who have been with us over the last year to ensure this. We also have us meeting with legislators and rallying and going through the state offices during our legislative day.
You know, if you put that up a second, look at Mrs. Gunther. I mean, she is in our advocate. I think this was Fountainhouse that came in. This is what you want out of a legislative meeting. The legislators there paying rapid attention, and it was a good meeting. It was fun. An example, those of you that are not going to meetings when you come up to the Capitol, for whatever reason, this is the reason to go. It's really very fun.
And also, I just want to note that we have a interest form already ready for you all for those who are interested in Legislative Day. It is in your conference packet. Scan that QR code, sign up. We're going to be sending you a lot of information about the upcoming regional forums, upcoming candidate forums for the election coming up, as well as our Legislative Day. So that's one way you can stay connected with us and continue that advocacy alongside of us.
The candidate forms, you made an alliance with the AARP?
Yes, not AARP, but the League of Women Voters. So yes, we're going to be working with the League of Women Voters throughout the state to work together to put on a number of candidate forums. We've been hosting voter registration drives. We'll see a phenomenal presentation tomorrow from some of our friends Phyllis Vine and Jordan Rosenthal, who will talk about voting and the need to get registered and have a plan, but all these ways that we can really have our voices heard through the ballot, through meeting with legislators, and making sure that our advocacy is consistent and consistently heard. So really quickly, here are some of our budget priorities and outcomes. So we sought an 8.5% COLA. We actually got a 2.78% COLA. It's a little weird, but it was also guaranteed that all staff salaries were able to rise by at least 2.5 percentage points, which was massive. And we were able to get this passed after some real struggles when it was almost about to fall through the cracks, but there was intensive advocacy to ensure that. Inset, we are incredibly excited about the 5 years at $800 apiece for 4 new inset programs. Some of our phenomenal members have been able to get some of those contracts, and we are hoping to expand this and get OMH, as you might have heard Commissioner Sullivan say, they are looking to get more of these programs so we can get more of the folks who do some of this phenomenal work to be able to provide inset services and push back against AOT and offer people voluntary access to these services that we know actually help them. Daniel's Law, like I said before, we got the pilot funding, but we were also able to push the task force to cut down their time. Originally, when the task force was passed last year, they had 2 years to put in recommendations. They are now have agreed, including Commissioner Sullivan has stated openly and consistently over the last couple of months that they'll have a report in before the end of the year so that we can push for funding, and they are hoping to ask for funding from the state for a statewide program and at least begin to establish that in further areas. Clean Slate was approved and signed, which means that people who have a criminal justice history, a record, will no longer have to go jump through hoops to get that sealed so they can get things like employment and housing. We now have this automatic sealing that will begin in 2025 for a certain classification of records. I'll go a little bit further into that tomorrow, so definitely come at 8:30 in the forum. Treatment, not jails, no action here, but we were able to get the state to provide more funding for folks who are criminal justice involved and have mental health challenges. We're going to continue to work for that treatment, not jail passage. Expansion of Medicaid buy-in, We also had mental health parity, really continuing to push for those improved discharge plans that we were talking a little bit about during the OMH forum earlier today. And then I'm gonna hold off on the rest of the stuff because that's all good stuff that we'll talk about tomorrow. So here are some of our advocacy priorities for the upcoming year. Once again, I'm not going to get too deep into it because tomorrow. But we're looking at the Medicaid waiver, including Medicaid reentry waiver. We've got a couple of projects in the works that we'll hopefully be able to talk to you guys about pretty soon here to really push for the Medicaid reentry waiver. And then pushing back against the IMD exclusion, or pushing back against efforts to repeal the IMD exclusion, both in our state and then federally. We've been meeting with a number of people within Congress to really ask for or really demand more community-based service funding, and then pushing back against any sort of coercion. So we've got rights-based initiatives, criminal justice reforms, crisis services, cross-disability initiatives. One of our biggest goals this year is collaboration. I can't stress that enough. We really need, at this time, we are facing so many challenges. We need that cross-disability collaboration. And we have a lot of efforts in the pipeline to really expand that. You might have been able to see the presentation Harvey did with a number of other statewide advocates on a number of issues, and that's the kind of thing we really want to push for. So we show up for them, they show up for us, and we all win. So here are some of our draft priorities for this year. First, bringing clubhouses back upstate and making sure they're sustainable and sustainably funded, providing more funding for additional inset programs, increasing the peer-run crisis respite center, the number of them. I think this is one thing that I hear everywhere, no matter whether in Western New York, downstate Long Island, it doesn't matter. Everyone says we need more peer-run crisis respites. And then commercial insurance parity, making sure that everyone, no matter what insurance you have or if you don't have insurance, gets access to that care. So this is a new one. We're changing the way that we look for workforce investments a little bit this year, looking at a 7.8% increase for behavioral health rates and contracts with a statewide group of behavioral health advocates. So we're changing, instead of COLA, which has also been very little, I think it's time that we really talk about, okay, we need that true investment into these services like we were supposed to get back in when the Community Mental Health Act was passed 60 years ago. So we're really going to be pushing for that this year. We're going to be pushing for more of those Daniels Law pilots, more peer bridgers, like we said before during the OMH panel. We want anyone who is leaving the hospital to have access to a peer bridger to support them as they go back into the community. So it doesn't matter whether you're leaving from a community hospital or a state hospital, you should have that. And then passing treatment, not jail. Here is some work that we've been doing from a federal standpoint. So we went with the National Coalition for Mental Health Recovery's Hill Days in 2024, where we pushed for those voluntary services, like I said, against any force, and then more services in general. And then the Rights and Recovery Advocacy Center, that is to be announced soon enough, but we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow.
A little bit. So, you've heard us say mental health. Okay, thank you.
There's a need in this country for mental health advocates to come together. We've been losing. We've been losing in New York on forced treatment. And we stand to lose a lot in November if things go a certain way. There's been a lot of talk about opening more hospitals. So we really have got to fight this push towards coercion, more institutions. And we're losing in the media, you know, we're losing with the Democrats who've always supported us. So we've got to fight back. We've got to be really proactive. So our thought is to really create at minimum, a website that has all kinds of information that can be used by the media and by the advocates to fight forced treatment. What works, what doesn't work, what's the outcomes of these approaches, what do they cost, any number of items. And we're also working to stimulate grassroots advocacy. And on that site, really help people. This is how you write a letter to the editor or an op-ed. You know, these are the kinds of media activities you would take. So, it's been a long day for me, so I can't get too much more into detail, but I will tell you that if we really committed to getting this funding, in this room, White Pond was here earlier, and he wrote this book about her consent is not needed. He's a huge national advocate, and that's what he said at the end. He said everything we've been saying. We need a group national group that'll pick up this fight. That'll be on the offense, not on the defense. So we'll have the information and the strategies. People trust us. They trust him, in particular, around the country already. And they know me. So I think we're the right group, I think, to really try to put this forward. And we'll be talking with other groups about it. But this is so needed, and I really want to see this up here.